Good afternoon. My name is Jim Conlan, and welcome to this segment of RCB Radio Sports Show West Clare, live at 92.5 and 94.8 FM, and online at www.rcb.ie. Earlier today, we spoke to Colm Collins, the Clare football manager, ahead of Clare's opening tie against Offaly in the Allianz Football League. And now we have an Offaly perspective on the encounter. The one and only Roy Malone, most famously known for his 2 goals that propelled Offaly to Leinster Championship glory in 1997. His second goal, widely regarded as one of the best goals ever scored in Croke Park in a provincial final. 7 titles won with Road. 2 Leinster finals appearances as well. And Roy, first of all, Offaly, there was a great buzz back in 1997 around Offaly football. In the last year or 20 months or so, that buzz has come back in. It seems Offaly football is on an upward curve. The great scenes and joy among the Offaly faithful with that under-20 championship win last year, followed by promotion up to Division 2. So it was a great year last year for Offaly football.
It was a brilliant year. It was brilliant. It was incredible, actually. The buzz around the place. You mentioned under 20s, and it started off pretty positively with the seniors. You know, I know that the league was kind of it was a reduced league last year, so there was extra pressure on each game. You know, so the seniors getting promoted first into Division 2, which is probably the first time. I think I was looking back in the record. I think it's 2007 since Offaly competed in Division 2, and then of course the summer we had with the 20s. It was absolutely incredible. I never saw the like of it, to be honest with you. Apart from 2006, I was a supporter and we got to a Leinster final, and there was a little bit of a buzz. And obviously back 97, 98, in around that time, we won Leinster in 97, won the league in 98, and we were competing at a high level, and there was great games, great buzz around the county with regard to football. And I suppose since 2006, we hadn't seen that sort of we went to Croke Park, you know, and in an All-Ireland final, and you know, dominated in the stands and dominated on the pitch. It was incredible. And just going to places like Portlaoise and the Leinster final against Dublin, and then the performance against Cork with the 20s, it was football I hadn't seen played in such a long time. The Cork game was probably close in the end, but we were brilliant. We were brilliant, and the brand of football was so refreshing. There was pace and power and, you know, great skill. And you could probably notice in my voice, the excitement of last year was it was brilliant. It was brilliant. Yeah. So we're hoping to, we're in Division 2 now for the first time in a long time. And, you know, I think maybe, you know, the optimism levels need to be tempered a little bit, you know, it's a young side mixed with a little bit of experience, but, you know, it's exciting times. It's exciting times.
And Roy, just back on the 20s there, before we touch on the Allianz League, I actually was part of the Clare minor management 2018. We played that Offaly team in a challenge game, and it was a draw. Actually, it was a draw. So in terms of that, the propel from minor to under 20s level, to see that development of that team over that 2 years team, from a decent minor team to a top, obviously the best team in the country at under 20. It probably caught me by surprise. Did it catch the people by Offaly by surprise? Because they didn't win Leinster at minor age, or they weren't even in the final at that. So was it a bit? Did it caught people by some off guard? Really?
It really did, I suppose, in ways. Now they grew from game to game. They struggled to beat Wexford in the first round of that championship, but they grew game by game by game, and Declan Kelly did a great job keeping their feet on the ground. And I suppose when they went into the Dublin, the Leinster final, a lot of people thought, well, listen, you know, we'll give a good account of ourselves maybe, but nobody expected probably to win, you know. Now I have a good friend who's the kit man with the under 20s, and he was saying to me, no, these guys are tuned in, they're good, they're quality. And as I say, Declan Kelly and Ger Rafferty and Davy Connolly and Harry Corrigan, a few of those guys that were involved, Sod Daly and the lads, they had them really, really, really flying. I suppose with the underage championships, you know, you can build momentum very quickly too, you know, if you start to get results. You know, they struggled over Wexford, as I say. They beat Westmead in the Leinster semi-final in a tough battle as well. I think they only won it really close to the end. You know, there was a couple of scores there. I think Aaron Keelan kicked the score near the end to win it. But so they were building, you know, and maybe came under the radar a little bit. But I suppose the Dublin game really was the game that kind of, I suppose it gave them belief. And it gave everybody else belief as well that they could actually get over the line. Like the minors, the minor team against Meath in the Leinster final were very, very, very unlucky not to win that game. We missed a couple of chances, and a couple of guys off that team, John Furlong and Cormac Egan, were starred on it, and Keith O'Neill. They probably, you know, it was just a little bit of belief maybe that, you know, didn't get them over the line. And once the guy, and they dominated that Leinster final against Dublin. I think there was 3 points in it at the end, but they dominated. Dublin got a couple of goals against the run of play, and it looked like maybe it was going to be, oh, here we go again type of thing. But they stuck with it and stuck to the plan and got over the line. And it was that day probably was, I'd say, the most significant win, I think, in Offaly football in such a long time, you know, because we had drifted a long time. We hadn't won an underage since 1995, an under 21 team that I was involved with myself. So 95 to 2022 is what, 27 years, you know. So like it's the first provincial underage success since then. So it was a hugely significant win, and really got the Offaly supporters really excited and excited for hopefully the years going forward, you know.
And Division 2 football now, Roy, we're on to 2022. Whatever success happened in 2021, I suppose that's all over and done with. It's a new start for all the teams throughout the country. And Division 2 has been the division, the most hotly contested division in the last decade or so. For the last 8 or 9 years, it's all been on the final day in terms of teams going up and teams going down. Nothing has ever been decided in Division 2 within 2 or 3 rounds to go as well. So that goes to show hotly contested is. Teams take points, teams that you wouldn't expect to go away, they beat teams are home, lose to teams might have 1 or 2 wins in the trot, didn't get taken over by someone who was 1 or 2. So you can't take anyone off guard here. Everyone can really beat each other in this division.
It's crazy that we used to do a prediction thing every weekend with a local golf society, and you know, I often used to say, like, anybody that does well in it knows nothing about football, because you can't legislate for the results sometimes in it. Like, it's crazy, the league, you know, and especially Division 2, like, it's such a competitive league, you know. Like, you've got like the northern teams, you've Down and Derry, Galway, Roscommon, Offaly, Meath, you know, Cork. Like, I mean, trying to predict some of those results, you know, it's going to be tough. Now, you know, I would be very, very, very happy. I would be, if we could just consolidate our position in Division 2. As I say, it's been 2007 since we've been there, you know. Clare have been there and knocking on the door, and possibly could have qualified for Division 1, probably unlucky in that semi-final against Mayo last year. I think it was 5 points in the end, but I think the game was in the melting pot right until the end of that game. So listen, you know, as I said, it's the first time we were there. I'm not playing any mind games with any. I wouldn't say any Clare management are looking at my interview, but I would be happy if we could just consolidate our position in Division 2 and stay there, because there's some tough games like Galway, you know, Roscommon, yourselves who could be in Division 1. You know, you've been operating. A lot of those teams have been operating at a little bit of a higher level than Offaly. Like, Offaly have flirted with Division 2, Division 3 since 2007, you know. So,
do you think there's a gap between Division 2 and Division 3?
I do. I think Division 3 and Division 4, I think they're quite similar. I don't think this, the standard is probably, there isn't as much of a gap as there is between 3 and 2. And then of course Division 1 is probably another level again. You often see teams that are promoted going down quickly, with Division 1 to Division 2 also. The two teams that generally are promoted are nearly favourites to go down, and more often than not, that's what happens sometimes. So like predicting who's going to win these bloody games is especially in Division 2, as I say, it's tough. It's a tough ask now. But like John Maughan has, Tomás O'Shea on board now, and I was chatting to Anton O'Sullivan recently, and they love him there. He's given a great injection into the thing. So there's great enthusiasm. They're great men to train. They always were. The guys that are there from, we'll say, the old stagers, well, they're probably sub 30, but they're regarded as veterans now. The likes of Anton Sullivan, Johnny Maloney, these guys, Niall Darby, of course, Niall McNamee is still there as well. So guys like that, boosted by the impetus of or the injection from the under 20s. Now, these under 20s, we need to give them patience too, because it takes a bit of time. There's a bit of a gap. Back in the day, it used to be under 21, and that year of development and that year of physical development it's fairly significant. So it's we can't expect miracles straight away, but still we're pretty excited at the prospect of going playing the likes of Clare and Cork and Galway and Roscommon, and they're great games to get, and it's exciting times.
And this weekend, you open with a away trip to Cusack Park in Ennis against Clare, the longest serving team in Division 2. Clare, longest team in the Division 2. And I suppose when you look at Clare, one thing you could say, one of the most difficult grounds to go to the country is Cusack Park. Apart from Mayo and Kerry, not many teams have been successful in Cusack Park. It's a tight sort of venue. It's probably one of those pitches that it's hard to go. And I suppose for an Offaly perspective, looking at Clare, there haven't been any real retirements in Clare this year. No one has really stepped away. So Colm Collins has the same panel as he had last year to work with, and Podge Collins is now fully fit and ready to go as well for this year. So Clare probably are, most of their team now is around 27, 28 mark. They're probably experienced sort of outfit as well. Pundits probably look at Clare and probably look at the history of the county, but and maybe probably tip them. But form suggests that Clare are probably a better team than what past history suggests, or what pundits might say.
Well, our recent history, the most recent history we have of Clare, I think, was a qualifier in 2018 up in Offaly in O'Connor Park, and we had an interim management in place at the time, but there was a little bit of excitement and a little bit of positivity around the county at the time. Now Clare turned us over in the last, I think, 10 or 15 minutes, ground us down. I think it was about 3 points in it at the end, but it was a lively contest. That's the last point of reference we have with Clare. But the fact that you have been playing, it's going down to Clare is going to be a tough proposition for us. There's no two roads about it. Like, it's not, as I said, there's no mind games, there's no on my behalf here. The fact of the matter is, you have survived and survived well and almost got out of Division 2 down there. We'd be going down with a lot of optimism, but we're also missing a couple of established players too. Keane Farrell there, he's Torres Cruciate there before in the club championship in Offaly. He is a super footballer, a huge loss in the forward line. Owen Carroll has gone travelling. Peter Cunningham's on duty with the army, and Owen Rigney, our full back. Like, they're four kind of experienced guys who are quality. They have pace, the power, the strength, of good ball control, and they're going to be a loss to, you can't just draft in 20 new or 15 new bodies or 10 new bodies and expect to go down and turn over an established Division 2 team, you know. So listen, we're going with optimism. We're missing a few bodies. We're going with optimism and a lot of excitement. But, you know, as I say, I think our excitement needs to be tempered a little bit. Guys who have been talking, they would say, like, okay, where are you going to get results in Division 2? And I suppose you'd be looking at a couple of games to maybe target. Guys have said that Clare is one that, you know, we need to be getting a result, but, you know, it is going to be a tough ask to go down there. And the form book in recent years would suggest a Clare victory. You know, it's like, as I was saying earlier, it's very, very hard to predict. And it's the first game of the league also, you know, so teams are rusty. Teams, you know, I think Clare only had one game in the McGrath Cup. I think Cork beat you narrowly enough, but it would have been largely experimental, I'm sure, and that competition as it was for Offaly. But so listen, trying to predict it is like maybe trying to predict the winner of the Grand National. You know, it's going to be tough, but on the form book, you would say Clare should be able to handle Offaly. But you know, you never know. We go down with a lot of optimism and a lot of youth on our side, and a lot of, you know, the players that we've brought in from the 20s, they've all got pace and they can all play football, you know. So, you know, that's universal, and hopefully they'll be able to apply that on Sunday.
And I suppose, Roy, if you look at probably the evergreen statesman of the Offaly team, you mentioned Johnny Maloney, and obviously he'll probably be designated probably to pick up Owen Cleary, the Clare sort of captain as well. But in terms of Niall, you look at players across the field, you've Niall McNamee, you switch it across, then you've the top scorer in the league football, and David Tuberty on the other side of the field as well. Keelan Sexton, then Bernard Allen. So one thing about both teams, they bring an awful lot of sharpshooters down to the will be on display in Innocent. It's going to be what sort of defence stands up, because there's an awful lot of veteran forwards. You've Jamie Malone there as well, your namesake as well for Clare. So an awful lot of both teams pack an awful lot of quality firepower, and there's a good lot of firepower in that Clare attack as well.
Absolutely, but this time of year it's tough on forwards. It's ground is heavier, you know. Teams obviously all tend to play a little bit more defensive these days, you know. So it's tough being a forward, you know. It's not now Niall is still he's still you know, he's still worth his weight in gold there. I don't expect him maybe to start, you know. He's 36, I believe now, so club mate of my own, great bit of stuff, you know, and will be a huge help to the guys coming in there. Bernard Allen, his scoring stats I saw a tweet recently where he's in the top, I think, 20 scorers in the last 10 years, which, you know, it comes as a surprise when you see it, when he's up there with the hot shots of football. But like, he's there, he's been consistent, you know, he's brilliant with frees, and he's a good score getter. So one thing I'm sorry that Keane Farrell won't be on display. He is a serious sharpshooter himself. Hopefully he'll get back before the end of the year, but I would have liked to seen his development progress, you know, early in the league. But come here, defense is usually this time of year, you know, it's they funnel back and get men back quicker, and ground is a little bit difficult, conditions are harder, so it's tough on the sharpshooters this time of year.
And I suppose, Roy, people will look at Division 2 as well, just to give an overall general sort of view. There's a few managers that are under pressure coming into this campaign this year. Public, I know, our near neighbours, Galway, there's a bit of pressure on Pádraig Joyce. He's into his third year now. People will be saying Galway, the first year was great, and Pádraig, they've probably gone backwards. So Galway, if they don't get a good start there under pressure, people will say Andy McAtee and Meath is under an awful lot of pressure as well there. There's maybe people at Meath have slipped back in terms of their development. And then obviously James McCartan in Down is probably working without all the Kilcoo lads. at the moment, and there's no doubts whether they'll come back into the fold as well, and down without sort of underage success recently as well. So there's an awful lot of teams in Division 2 with sort of pressure coming into them. Offaly have that sort of freedom lease of life, and I suppose so it's going to be interesting to see if one or results go wrong for one or sort of two teams. But I suppose Offaly will probably be looking at that down game as well as a potential 2 points.
Yeah, well, listen, I suppose you have to be realistic, but as regards managers under pressure, I would assume that most of them they're going to be in their positions for the year. You know, Pádraig Joyce maybe may feel he's under pressure. He's got high standards himself. It's his 3rd year. Andy McEntee's there a long time, as you say. John Mahon has been there for 3 or 4 years, you know, but I suppose Tomás O'Shea added into the equation now. Hopefully that will give the guys in Offaly are very happy with and have been very happy with the management over the last few years. You know, I remember talking to Anton Sullivan recently, and they went down to play Meath. They should have beaten Meath in the championship. I think it's 3 or 4 years ago down in Navan. And he said it was the first time in a long time that they'd gone into a high-profile fixture like that, really believing they could win it, you know. And he attributed that belief to John Mahon and the setup, you know. So John has brought a wealth of experience there, and obviously Tomás O'Shea, from our own perspective, our you know, our management, you know, there's a lot of confidence in them. I can't speak for other counties. Maybe I suppose every manager is under pressure, and you know, if you don't get off to a winning start, you know, you feel like you're under pressure for either promotion or relegation in Division 2. You know, so a good start is vital, but it's a bad start isn't always detrimental to your chances of promotion, you know, or relegation. So I suppose, you know, guys like that would be putting themselves under pressure, you know, they all have high standards, like James McCartan. You're naming out some quality guys there. I suppose in Cork, Keith Ricken there as well. He's new. He's come from the under-20s there, and he's trying to establish himself as well. So I suppose in one way or another, every manager, you know, has exerted some sort of pressure on himself, you know, to succeed, you know.
And Roy, I suppose I leave you with this sort of point, and it's an intriguing sort of development for this upcoming year, because league obviously plays a role in terms of championship this year. And I mentioned this to Colm Collins there earlier on when I spoke to him, and he was evident in that sort of point as well, how important it is that, let's say, for example, Offaly did finish in the relegation places in Division 2. Hopefully you don't, but let's say you did, and let's say Laois or Westmeath, through the look of the draw, wound up in a Leinster final, then they would actually, because they're a Division 3 team, they would actually go into the Sam Maguire, and if he got knocked out in Leinster, you would be actually in the Tailteann Cup rather than the Sam Maguire. So that brings on an extra significance. It's the same if Clare went down and say Tip or Limerick got to a Munster final with Kerry and Cork, that would put Clare. So that's huge for counties that are trying to develop themselves to be in that Sam Maguire, not only for this year, next year obviously, but this year as well in terms of players as well. So there's an extra onus as well, because anyone gets relegated from Division 2, they'll be nervously looking over their shoulder. I know Offaly will be still hoping that if Kildare or Meath would get to a Leinster final, because that would guarantee Offaly's position in the Sam Maguire. But you never know if a Westmeath or Laois got on a good run and got to Leinster final, and then all of a sudden you're facing into Tailteann Cup rather than Sam Maguire.
Yeah, it's a scary proposition. There's no two roads about it, you know. Now, I think the system is, God, I remember speaking to, I think Will O'Callaghan back 4 or 5 years ago on local radio here, and saying that the provincial system was completely redundant at that stage. You know, it's outlived its sell-by date, or it's out, you know, it's a completely redundant structure, in my opinion, you know. It needs, I don't know why proposal B, or I think it was proposal B, was it last year, wasn't accepted. And I find it very hard to believe the poll that I seen recently among GPA members to accept the green proposal this year, you know. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes there, but maybe there's a bit of give and take going on. But for me, it's a no-brainer. The league is the most exciting part of the footballing calendar now. The provincial championships are, they're a dead duck. Like Dublin are dominant in Leinster, Kerry and Munster. Now you have 2 or 3 teams in maybe Galway, Mayo, and Roscommon, but up north is the only competitive province. Like this, people are blue in the face, putting forward this argument, but like the league structure is brilliant. You're playing teams of your more or less your own level. They're exciting games that you have a possibility of winning. They need to just replace the league structure into, as Proposal B suggested, as your championship and take it from there. And I just can't get over it's a purely political thing. Like it's a purely it's provincial councils holding on to the little bit of power that they have still, and it's at the detriment of our games and our players and the championships. So it needs to be revamped. And it's as simple as that. I think every player would agree that that's the way forward. And most fair GAA football-minded people, or hurling people for that matter, so.
And Roy, lastly, for you, I no doubt you're probably travelling down to Cusack Park this weekend. As an Offaly supporter now, cheering on from the stands rather than a player, would you be happy making the trip back to Tullamore or Birr with maybe a result in the bag, even if that result was a draw, to start off the league with a point on the board?
If we go down to Clare and we get some sort of a result, I'd be absolutely elated. It would be a great start. It'd be a brilliant start. It's going to be tough. It's not impossible. It's very, it's attainable, but it'll be bloody tough to get a result down there. If we did, I'd be a happy man going back to Tullamore. Yeah.
On that note, Roy Malone, thanks for joining us this evening. We wish Offaly all the best in the upcoming Allianz Division League 2 and Championship, and hopefully the recent success will continue on that sort of trend and an upbeat feeling in Offaly GA at the moment. Roy Malone, thanks for taking the call. Cheers and take care.
Thanks, Jim.